When you get knocked down, you're only a loser if you don't get back up.
Hard enough, and he's just being outworked a little bit. Oh! But the straight... Oh.
Great shot! Right hand!
Daniel Dubois was a loser, twice. And in a sport like boxing, a single loss can end a career. Dubois was called a quitter, damaged goods, a fighter with zero heart. But after being written off, he refused to give up on his dream. He took tune-up fights, low-paying fights, and risky fights that would bury his career if he lost. Whenever the call came, he answered. He was always in the gym and always available. And after a string of knockouts and clawing his way back up the rankings, he found himself in the biggest fight of his career. Against two-time champion Anthony Joshua in front of 96,000 fans at Wembley Stadium. With the title on the line, everyone wondered, would we see Dubois quit for the third time? Or would we see the birth of a new British king? Dynamite Dubois proved that a loss isn't the end of your career. If handled right, it could be the start of a legendary comeback. The only problem is, now that he's champion, he's got a target on his head, and he isn't the only one fighting his way back to the top. On February 22nd, live on DAZN, Daniel Dubois puts his title on the line against Joseph Parker, the heavy-hitting new champion versus the relentless former champion. This will be an explosive heavyweight slugfest, and it's on the fight card of the century. 4 championship fights, superstars from all across the globe, and the undisputed rematch between Beterbiev and Bivol. Don't miss the excitement and get a free 7-day trial when you buy now with my link. Watch the fight card of the century for just $25. DAZN.com/Murdoch in the description. In 1974, George Foreman was the king of the world, until Muhammad Ali knocked him out. This setback would not only cost him his title, but his will to fight, and a few years later, he retired. Big George spent his time preaching and running a youth center, thinking his fighting days were well behind him. But when the wreck ran out of funds, he only knew how to make money one way.
I'll never ask anyone for money again. I'm going to be heavyweight champion of the world. That's how I'll get my money.
To keep kids off the street, fat old George started fighting again, and he started winning. Knockout after knockout, the circus act soon became a contender. After 24 straight wins, he earned a title shot. Against a prime, undisputed champion Evander Holyfield, he lost. But this time against Michael Moore, who beat Holyfield to win the title. Moore was 19 years his junior and a heavy favorite. For 10 rounds, the champion easily outboxed the old man, gaining the lead on all 3 judges' scorecards. By all accounts, it looked like Big George was gonna lose a title fight for the 3rd time. But you know what they say about aging fighters, power is the last thing to go.
There's a right hand, down goes Moore, he's flat on his back, he may not get up!
Not maybe, he's not moving!
Moore could be about to lose the heavyweight title!
I don't believe this!
Joe Cortez pulls up the count!
It's over!
It is over!
Holy
and George
cow!
Foreman has pulled off the miracle that no one thought possible!
Almost 20 years to the day he lost the belts, wearing the very same trunks, George Foreman recaptured the heavyweight championship. This is the gold standard for a sports comeback. Foreman defied all odds and embodied the spirit of boxing. It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. Inside and outside the ring, the comeback is the ultimate story, whether in a fight after getting knocked down or in a career after getting knocked out. It's the underdog story, the Rocky story. It's what makes boxing our favorite sport. It's what makes Dubois versus Parker so exciting. Both men have battled back from crushing defeat. And this is the first heavyweight title fight that hasn't included Fury, Wilder, or Joshua in nearly a decade. It's also rewriting the narrative that a fighter is finished after a single loss. In that same time frame, the UFC has crowned 45 new champions, with only 6 being undefeated. In modern heavyweight boxing, virtually every new champion had a perfect record. The only exceptions, Andy Ruiz and Daniel Dubois. It's no mystery why they were the most compelling stories in recent history. Everyone loves an underdog. This fight signals a major milestone in moving away from the risk-free culture that boxing suffers from. With these two vying for a championship, it promotes exciting, competitive fights over protecting the O. The old guard preserved their records for as long as they could, so we never saw unification. Parker and Dubois already lost, so they had nothing left to lose. Every fight was do or die. After Joe Joyce shattered his orbital bone, Dubois lost more than a title shot or his undefeated record. Because he voluntarily took a knee, he lost his confidence. The next few years saw him take easy tune-ups to rebuild his morale, but he was always on major cards and played along with boxing politics. After 4 straight knockouts and picking up the secondary WBA title, he became the mandatory challenger to champion Alexander Usyk. This was a well-earned title shot, but just like every other British heavyweight to challenge Usyk, he was no match. On sheer volume alone, Dubois was drowned out and floored twice before getting counted. They weren't even particularly heavy punches either, supporting the idea that Dubois had no heart. The sad part is, Dubois actually dropped Usyk, depending who you ask. Before the stoppage, a punch to the groin sent the Ukrainian wheezing to the canvas. Now, there's been plenty of debate on the belt line and where the glove really landed, but this was a 50-50 call. I happen to think it was low, but Dubois was a centimeter away from becoming champion. In his mind, he knocked out the champ and had his win ripped away from him on a split-second decision. Dubois was gutted. One title shot is hard enough to come by, and earning another would be nearly impossible. Now a 2-time quitter, Dubois was relegated to a domestic-level fighter. Fun to watch on an undercard, but not championship material. So, as 4th billing on AJ's undercard, he fought the undefeated 100-pound heavier Jarrell Miller. After digging deep through 10 rounds, with 10 seconds left in the fight, he got the stoppage. On paper, Miller isn't exactly a great win, but this knockout wasn't just for his record, it was for his confidence.
I couldn't allow myself to fail again, and I came through it, and I showed the world, and I showed myself most importantly tonight.
Dubois was revitalized, so when the call came to fight boogeyman Filip Ergovic for the IBF interim belt, he saw a path back to the championship. Both men exchanged heavy leather, but as the Croatian slowed down, the Brit kept punching. Cuts all around Ergovic's eyes forced a doctor's stoppage, and Dubois was back in the top 5. And after inheriting Usyk's relinquished belt, he was technically a world champion, but he would have to go through AJ to solidify his status. Dubois never let Joshua get started, knocking him down in the 1st, the 3rd, the 4th, and finally putting him out cold. From kneeling to Usyk to flatlining Joshua in the span of a year, Dubois proved he has the heart of a champion. Who else could come back from such adversity? Well, Joseph Parker. Champions rarely hail from New Zealand, so when he lost his belt to Joshua in the follow-up to White, he knew he'd have to work twice as hard for another shot. Parker got active, and after 6 straight wins, he was just 1 away from earning mandatory challenger status. But all that went down the drain when Joe Joyce bludgeoned and bloodied him in an 11th round knockout. Now, both men lost to the juggernaut, but the way Parker got slumped was way worse than Dubois' surrender. His comeback might even be more admirable because of the magnitude of his defeat. Nevertheless, after 5 fights in just 13 months, there is no one who deserves a title shot more than Joseph Parker. He survived Deontay Wilder's right hand and Zhilei Zhang's left. He's fought Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora, and spars Tyson Fury in every training camp. In fact, if we look at who's fought the most this decade, it's clear who's put in the work. You don't need to be undefeated, you don't have to talk trash, you just need to get better every time you fight. Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker both lost, sure, but they learned from those losses and came back stronger. Andy Ruiz lost and has only fought 3 times in the 6 years since. Their rankings speak for themselves. In a fight between 2 Cinderella stories, only one will end happily. Both men have clawed their way back from the brink, proving that it's not the loss that defines your career, it's the comeback. Let me know in the comments who you think will win. I think it's 50-50, but the victor will certainly be a champion who's defeated doubters, adversity, and their own demons. They might even be the future of heavyweight boxing.